Once we reach our 60-second, nutrition stops being just about energy. It becomes one of the strongest forces shaping how well our brain will serve us in the years ahead. I want you to think about this. Even something as small as your morning toast or the drink you have every day can work for you or against you. It can protect your neurons, or it can slowly chip away at your memory, focus, and clarity. Many breakfast foods you see in stores, proudly labeled low-fat, heart-healthy, or wholesome, can in fact set off harmful changes inside the body. They may promote microclots that block tiny blood vessels in the brain, disturb your blood sugar balance, or trigger a constant low-level inflammation you never feel, but which slowly does its damage. These processes are not just random. They are well known in medical research to raise the risk of dementia, silent strokes, and the slow loss of mental sharpness. I have seen this again and again in my clinic. Patients who exercise, eat what looks like a sensible diet, and do most things right, but still show early changes in memory tests or small, hidden signs of damage on brain scans. And when we dig deeper into their daily meals, we find a common thread: foods that appear harmless, even healthy, yet hide refined starches, hidden sugars, or unhealthy fats that quietly harm the brain's delicate circulation. So today, I'm begging you, stay with me as I walk you through 10 silent food habits that may be harming your brain every single day. One of them is likely in your kitchen right now, and one might be sitting in your fridge waiting for tomorrow's breakfast. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Processed meats. Many people believe that simply eating in moderation, avoiding fried foods, and not smoking is enough to protect brain health. Yet, in my work with hundreds of older patients showing signs of mild cognitive impairment, silent strokes, or chronic cerebral ischemia, I have observed a troubling pattern. A large number of them regularly consume processed meats such as sausages, ham, bacon, or cured pork during breakfast or as part of their daily snacks. The danger lies in the fact that these foods contain high levels of nitrates and nitrites, preservatives used to enhance color, flavor, and shelf life. Once inside the body, these compounds can convert into nitrosamines, which are known to damage the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of blood vessels. From a pathological standpoint, endothelial injury marks the first step in chronic inflammation, leading to cerebral atherosclerosis, a common cause of ischemic stroke in older adults. But the risk does not end there. Nitrites can also alter blood coagulation, making the blood more prone to thickening and forming microthrombi. These tiny clots can silently obstruct small cerebral vessels, often during sleep, resulting in minor strokes that patients may only notice upon waking, with symptoms such as facial drooping, slurred speech, or weakness on one side of the body. This is not a rare occurrence in clinical practice. In fact, it is something I see regularly. One clinical case that has stayed with me is that of Mrs. Helen, a 72-year-old retired school principal She came to the clinic, complaining only of a slight numbness in a few fingertips on her left hand, assuming it was simply due to sleeping in the wrong position. Yet, her brain MRI revealed a small area of infarction, a silent stroke that had developed quietly in his sleep. Completely unnoticed, blood tests showed her clotting levels were above normal, an indication that his blood was in a prothrombotic state. When I spoke with her husband, he assured me that his diet was generally healthy, except for one detail almost every day. He ate a sandwich with cold cuts. A small detail, but a significant one. No one had ever told her that processed meats, such as sausages, ham, or bacon, could be directly linked to stroke risk, but someone should have warned her much earlier. In older adults, the brain's blood vessels become less elastic and more vulnerable to damage from salt, preservatives, and pro-inflammatory compounds found in these meats. Once the endothelial lining is injured, blood flow slows, viscosity increases, and tiny clots can form, particularly when the body is at rest during sleep. And that is how a silent stroke can occur. No warning, no pain, yet enough to alter a person's quality of life forever. If there is one small change that can have a big impact on brain health in later years, it is this: reduce, or better yet, remove processed meats from your daily diet. Choose fresh meats, omega-3 rich fish, or boiled eggs instead. Such simple substitutions can help protect your brain circulation from events you never imagined could happen to you. But processed meats are only the beginning. What if I told you that something as simple as salt, yes, the one in your cupboard, could pressurize your brain's delicate vessels like a pipe ready to burst? Now, let's move on to point number 2. High sodium foods. One of the things I always remind my older patients is this: the most dangerous forms of damage often cause no pain, no discomfort, but they quietly accumulate over time. And few people would suspect that salt, something found in every kitchen, is a prime example. I'm not talking about the pinch of salt you sprinkle over steamed vegetables. What is far more concerning is the sodium hidden in processed foods, canned soups, frozen meals, bottled sandwiches, even whole grain bread or fresh cheese, that items we often consider healthy. In reality, many packaged foods contain sodium levels far beyond what the blood vessels of the brain and heart in someone over 60 can safely tolerate in the long run. As we age, our arteries, especially the tiny capillaries that nourish the deeper regions of the brain, gradually lose their elasticity. The endothelial lining that protects these vessels becomes thinner and more fragile. When you consume excess sodium, the body retains water, and blood pressure begins to rise silently. The pressure is like pumping more water into an old rubber hose. It may seem fine for a while, but inside, tiny cracks are forming. Over time, these micro-injuries trigger the body's repair mechanism by forming small blood clots. They may cause no immediate symptoms, but can travel through the circulation. If even one of them becomes lodged in a small brain vessel, the blood supply is cut off, and within seconds, brain tissue begins to die. That is a stroke. Sometimes it is mild, leaving you with slightly slurred speech or minor weakness in your limbs. But it can also be devastating, a stroke from which there is no full recovery, leaving lasting disabilities for life. I still vividly remember the case of Joe, a 8-year-old retired librarian. Sharp-minded, articulate, and always proud of her independence. She came to see me because she had recently experienced occasional moments of dizziness and brief mental fog. Her blood pressure in the clinic was unusually high. And the first thing she said to me was, "But doctor, I don't use salt. I don't even have a salt shaker on my dining table." Yet, when we sat down together to go through her daily meals, the truth gradually emerged: a portion of canned soup at lunch, frozen turkey for dinner, and low-fat salad dressing. None of them tasted particularly salty, but her total daily sodium intake was over 3.0 milligram, nearly double the recommended maximum for older adults. An MRI scan revealed signs of cerebral microangiopathy, tiny, silent brain infarcts that had occurred without symptoms, but were enough to warn that her brain was being significantly affected from within. She was shocked, but for me, this was a familiar pattern I had seen far too often. High sodium foods don't cause an explosion inside the body. They cause a slow leak, bit by bit, weakening blood vessels, creating microscopic injuries, and eventually leading to cracks. In older adults, where the vascular system has already begun to age and the endothelial lining is fragile, salt becomes a form of slow toxin, corroding the vessel's protective layer, making blood flow less efficient and increasing the risk of clot formation. The frightening truth is that most of this salt doesn't come from shaking it onto your food. It comes from processed, packaged, or even diet products that are loaded with sodium to make up for lost flavor. You don't need to have symptoms to have a problem. High blood pressure doesn't always cause headaches or nosebleeds. Sometimes, it simply exerts silent pressure on the vessels until one small clot drifts into the brain, blocks a vessel, and life changes in an instant. But this is something you can control. Cook at home more often. Read nutrition labels carefully. Choose lower sodium versions. Talk to your doctor about a blood pressure target that's right for your age and health, especially if you notice even subtle changes in your memory or clarity of thought. Now, if sodium is quietly squeezing your arteries from the inside, imagine what happens when your blood thickens from the outside. What if I told you the drink that makes your day feel sweet may be secretly hardening your brain's blood vessels? Let's talk about that next. 3. Sugary drinks. You might think that a glass of sweet tea at lunch, a can of soda while relaxing, or a bit of coffee with milk in the morning wouldn't make much of a difference. In reality, once you reach middle age and beyond, these very sweet little habits can quietly weaken the blood vessels in your brain, day by day. Few people realize that sugary drinks, even fruit juices with added sugar, don't just spike your blood glucose. They directly affect the structure and function of the brain's blood vessels. After consuming each sugary drink, your blood sugar levels rise rapidly, prompting your body to release insulin to bring them back under control. When this cycle repeats over a prolonged period, your cells gradually become less responsive to insulin, leading to insulin resistance, a key driver of chronic vascular inflammation. In older adults, this becomes a serious problem. The brain's blood vessels are already thin, narrow, and less elastic with age. Now, with ongoing inflammation, the endothelial lining becomes roughened, allowing cholesterol to cling more easily and small clots to form. These clots may cause no symptoms at first, but if one travels and blocks a branch of a brain artery, a stroke can strike in seconds. Sugar also causes mild dehydration, which reduces vessel elasticity and weakens the brain's ability to regulate microvascular blood pressure. All of this leaves your brain's blood vessels more fragile, more vulnerable, and long before you might notice anything is wrong. I once treated a patient named Joseph, 82 years old, a former long-haul truck driver. He lived a disciplined life, no smoking for 2 decades, daily morning walks, and a belief that he was doing everything right. But then, out of nowhere, a minor stroke struck, leaving him struggling to speak. When I asked more about his daily habits, he finally admitted every day. For years, he drank 3 cans of root beer. He never thought it was a problem, just a small habit, a familiar little pleasure. The lab results told a very different story. Prediabetes, high triglycerides, and early signs of damage to the brain's blood vessels. That stroke was not sudden at all. It was the endpoint of a silent, years-long process, set in motion by what seemed like harmless behavior. Sugary drinks don't just expand your waistline, they directly affect your memory, language, thinking, and even your connection to the world around you. Every sip is like a wave of sugar flooding into your bloodstream, triggering inflammation, damaging the vascular lining, and accelerating brain aging far beyond your chronological years. You might be thinking, but I drink the sugar-free kind. The diet version. Unfortunately, artificial sweeteners aren't harmless either. Multiple studies show they can disrupt gut microbiota, increase sugar cravings, and impair insulin regulation, especially in older adults whose metabolism is already less resilient. If you remember only one thing from what I'm sharing today, let it be this: a healthy brain needs clean blood, stable blood sugar, and inflammation-free blood vessels. Sugary drinks undermine all 3. You don't need a perfect diet. Just start with simple swaps: water, unsweetened tea, or black coffee. No syrup, no cream. After just a few weeks, you may feel the difference: clearer thinking, sharper memory, a lighter body. Every major transformation begins with one honest first choice. And if just one soda can harm your blood vessels, what happens when the snacks you eat every single day are quietly inflaming your brain and eroding your memory bite by bite? Let me show you the everyday foods hiding in your own kitchen. And why? After this, you'll never see your pantry the same way again. Now, let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Pastries, cookies, and snacks. No one can deny the comforting warmth of enjoying a crisp, fragrant cookie, a slice of cake after dinner, or a small sweet treat with afternoon tea. These foods are often tied to memories, family gatherings, the laughter of grandchildren, or quiet moments shared with an old friend. But there's a truth: many older adults don't learn until it's too late. These small, innocent-seeming treats are quietly undermining the health of your brain's blood vessels. Day after day, when I first began practicing, I thought my focus should be on major conditions: stroke, dementia, memory loss. But over time, I began to notice a repeating pattern: patients showing early signs, subtle speech slurring, fleeting confusion, mental fatigue, often had one thing in common: a habit of snacking on processed foods high in refined sugar and simple carbohydrates. Cookies, pastries, snack cakes, wafers, and packaged bread are not just sweet foods. They're a mix of refined sugar, fast-absorbing starch, trans fat, industrial vegetable oils, and additives, all of which are potent triggers of vascular inflammation. When you eat a sugary pastry or a bag of snacks, your blood sugar spikes rapidly, then crashes just as fast. These swings don't just leave you feeling drained, they cause a slow, smoldering inflammation in the blood vessel walls, especially in the tiny capillaries of the brain. The endothelium, as the delicate inner lining of your vessels, becomes roughened, unstable, and prone to plaque buildup. Your body detects this damage and responds by sending clotting factors to patch it. This leads to the formation of tiny blood clots. Here's the danger: it takes just one microscopic clot, drifting into a narrow vessel in the brain, to block blood flow, and in a matter of seconds, that part of the brain shuts down. I once treated a patient named Noah, 79 years old, a retired elementary school teacher, sharp, lively, and fiercely independent. He came to see me after his daughter noticed a few subtle changes, forgetting the names of acquaintances, and on a few occasions, getting lost while driving home. At first, we suspected mild cognitive impairment, but his brain scans revealed something far more serious: multiple small infarcts, silent injuries that had been accumulating in his brain for years. Noah could hardly believe it. "But I eat so healthy," he said, and on the surface, it seemed true. But as we went through his daily eating habits together, the real picture emerged. He often skipped breakfast and had a muffin mid-morning. Before dinner, he nibbled on crackers with cheese, and after every meal, there was usually 1 or 2 cookies for dessert. Small, seemingly harmless treats, but when repeated day after day, they were fueling chronic inflammation and persistent clotting activity in his body. And the most heartbreaking part, Noah had no idea. Like so many older adults, he believed that low-fat cookies or sugar-free granola bars were smart choices, but these kinds of processed foods, when eaten regularly, are in fact concentrated sources of refined starch, trans fat, and preservatives, all proven to be linked to neuroinflammation and cerebrovascular disease in older adults. The brain isn't only vulnerable to major strokes, it can be slowly eroded, bit by bit, by the foods we repeat every day, by the small choices that seem so harmless. So if you keep a sleeve of cookies in your pantry or a box of crackers next to your favorite chair, it's time to reconsider. Try replacing them with nuts, berries, Greek yogurt, or sliced vegetables. This isn't just about healthy eating. It's about taking real, tangible steps to protect your memory, your clarity, and your ability to live independently. And if snacks can quietly destroy brain vessels, just imagine what happens when your evening meal sabotages your most important healing process: sleep. What if the way you eat at night is preventing your brain from repairing itself? Let's talk about that next. 5. Eating too late at night. When it comes to diet, most people focus only on what to eat, forgetting an equally important factor: when to eat, especially for older adults. The timing of meals can be the difference between helping the brain recover and unknowingly causing it further harm. In my practice, I've seen countless cases of chronic insomnia, worsening memory loss, and even mild strokes occurring during sleep, where the root cause was something deceptively simple: the habit of eating dinner late or having a snack just before bed. After the age of 60, the body changes more than we realize. Metabolism slows, the circadian rhythm, the body's internal clock that governs sleep and cellular repair, becomes more fragile. When you eat dinner too late, especially if it's high in starch or fat, your body has to divert energy into digestion at a time it should be resting and repairing. Here's the dangerous part. Nighttime is when the brain performs vital housekeeping, flushing out toxins, fighting inflammation, repairing neurons, and regulating neurotransmitter activity. But if your digestive system is still working hard, blood flow and energy are directed to the stomach instead of the brain. So what is the result? The brain can't repair itself properly. Recovery processes are disrupted. The hormones that control deep sleep are suppressed, and the entire nervous system stays in a low-grade state of stress. It doesn't stop there. If your dinner is heavy in sugar or fast-digesting starches, your blood sugar will spike right before bed, followed by a surge in insulin and sudden swings in blood pressure during the night. You won't feel a thing, but inside, your blood vessels are under sudden strain, increasing the risk of endothelial inflammation and microclot formation. And it takes just one tiny clot forming while you sleep to trigger an unexpected stroke. I still remember Mr. Sendia, Evan, 88 years old, a retired engineer living alone after his wife passed away. He had a habit of eating dinner late, sometimes as late as 9:30 p.m. I only eat when I feel hungry. He told me his meals weren't large, his body wasn't overweight, but over time, strange signs began to appear. Waking up in the morning feeling mentally foggy, slower memory, recall, and occasional mild headaches. Things became serious one morning when he forgot how to start his own car, and his daughter brought him to see me immediately. A brain scan revealed multiple small, deep infarcts, lacunar strokes, silently occurring during the night. He had no idea because, in his mind, he wasn't doing anything wrong. But the combination of late dinners, poor sleep quality, and underlying high blood pressure had been quietly stealing away his brain's nightly opportunity to repair itself. What many people never hear is this: the brain does its most important work while you sleep, clearing out toxins, reducing inflammation, restoring neurons, and reorganizing neural networks. Anything that disrupts this process, especially late-night digestion, can leave lasting damage, even changing the course of your life. That's why, if you have a habit of eating after 7-8 p.m., try shifting your last meal earlier. Give your body at least 2-3 hours between your final bite and bedtime so digestion can finish, allowing your brain to do what it was meant to recover. Keep evenings light, gentle stretches, a cup of herbal tea, or a few almonds, but end eating early. Sleep is your brain's sacred time, and late dinners are the silent thief that robs it. And if this surprises you, wait until you hear what happens when the very cooking oils you use slowly harden your blood vessels. Like concrete lining the inside of a pipe. It's not just what's on your plate, but also what's in your pan. We'll talk about that next. 6. Margarine and reused cooking oils. For years, countless people were told that margarine was healthier than butter, that vegetable oils were better than animal fat, and that frying at home was far safer than eating fried food outside. But today, medical research tells a very different story. Certain fats once thought to be healthy, such as margarine, shortening, or cooking oil that's been reused multiple times, are among the most dangerous culprits for both the brain and the heart. I've seen many patients who, after decades of cooking with these oils and fats, paid the price with arteries in the brain that gradually stiffened and narrowed like pipes lined with hardened cement, choking off blood flow to the brain and paving the way for stroke. The danger isn't just that these are artificial fats. It's what happens to them at the molecular level when they're heated repeatedly. Each round of frying causes the oil to oxidize, generating free radicals, highly unstable molecules that attack and damage the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of blood vessels. Once this protective layer is injured, the body reacts much like it would to a cut on the skin, triggering clot formation to patch the wound. But here, the clots form right inside the blood vessels. These clots don't usually cause symptoms right away. They can lie dormant for years, until one day, in a single moment, a clot dislodges and blocks a tiny artery in the brain. Blood flow stops instantly, and brain cells in that area begin to die within seconds. One of my patients, Mrs. Naila, 69 years old, lives alone in a small town. She loved cooking and took pride in her crispy fried dishes, golden fries, pan-seared fish, even toast browned on a skillet instead of butter. She chose margarine, believing it was the heart-healthy choice. For more than 30 years, that habit hardly changed. When she came to see me, her symptoms seemed mild, occasional dizziness, sometimes forgetting the names of familiar people, and occasionally using the wrong word. Her daughter mentioned that she had recently called a neighbor by the wrong name and often mixed up simple terms. We ordered an MRI scan, and the results were devastating. Multiple small, silent strokes scattered across different regions of her brain, areas where blood supply had briefly been interrupted, leaving permanent damage. The cause wasn't trauma or genetics. It stemmed from chronic microvascular injury in the brain. Small arteries were inflamed, fragile, and prone to blockage. Blood tests revealed elevated triglycerides, high markers of oxidative stress, and signs of systemic inflammation. Her body had been quietly battling the long-term effects of cooking with margarine and repeatedly reused frying oil. She broke down in tears in my office. Why didn't anyone tell me? I thought I was doing the right thing. The truth is, Naila's story is far from rare. Trans fats and oxidized oils aren't merely unhealthy. They are toxic to the aging vascular system. They alter the very chemistry of the blood, stiffen the vessel walls, slow down red blood cell flow, and trigger clot-forming mechanisms, changes that routine lab tests can easily miss. And in an aging brain, where blood flow must remain steady and unobstructed, these effects can have devastating consequences. So here's my advice. Check your pantry today. Read the labels carefully. If you see the words partially hydrogenated, if it's margarine, or if it's cooking oil that has been reused for frying, get rid of it. Replace it with extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or cold-pressed coconut oil. These oils not only avoid the damage, but also provide antioxidants that help protect your blood vessels. You've lived too long and worked too hard to let your brain be taken down by a single spoonful of the wrong fat. And if the wrong oils can silently harden your arteries from the inside, imagine what happens when you don't drink enough water to keep your blood flowing freely in the first place. Dehydration in older adults is far more dangerous than most people realize. And that is the next silent threat I want you to hear about. 7. Dehydration. Most people think dehydration only happens in the summer or after exercise. But after decades of treating patients with strokes, memory loss, and cognitive decline, I've learned this in older adults. Dehydration is often a silent risk that appears every single day. No thirst. No obvious warning signs. Yet the consequences can be devastating. As we age, our sense of thirst gradually weakens. The body no longer sends the strong signals it did in our 30-second or 40-second. This means that even when you don't feel thirsty, your body may already be running low on fluids. At this point, a series of silent changes begin. Blood volume decreases, circulation slows, blood vessels constrict, and most dangerous of all, your blood becomes thicker, stickier, and less flexible. That's when the real trouble begins. Thicker blood makes it easier for clots to form. In younger people, dehydration may only cause fatigue or dizziness, but in older adults whose arteries are already stiffer, narrower, or lined with plaque, even a slight increase in blood thickness can significantly raise the risk of a clot traveling to the brain and triggering a stroke. I'll never forget Mr. Asher, 79 years old, a retired construction contractor, fiercely independent, and the kind of man who almost never set foot in a doctor's office. He stayed active every day and believed that because he ate clean, he was in great shape. But when he came into my clinic, there was a slight tremor in his right hand and a subtle wobble when he tried to keep his balance. Probably just old age. He shrugged. What worried me more was that his blood pressure fluctuated wildly, and his lab results revealed hemoconcentration, blood that had become thicker and more viscous from chronic dehydration. Later, his daughter told me he rarely drank plain water because he didn't like the taste, preferring coffee throughout the day and only a single glass of water with dinner. A brain scan revealed a small embolic stroke, most likely caused by a clot that formed due to sluggish circulation and thickened blood. Mr. Asher had no idea he was in the danger zone, but his brain knew, and so did we. What many people don't realize is that your brain runs entirely on a steady, oxygen-rich blood supply. Microscopic capillaries, which are thinner than a human hair, feed the regions that control memory, language, and movement. When you're dehydrated, those vessels constrict, blood flow slows, and the risk of ischemic stroke, even mild dehydration can trigger confusion, short-term memory lapses, and dizziness. But when it's prolonged, especially alongside risk factors like high blood pressure or diabetes, the consequences can be far more severe. That's why I tell my patients, never wait until you feel thirsty to drink water. By the time thirst sets in, your brain is already under strain. Make hydration as routine as brushing your teeth or taking your medications. Aim for 6-8 glasses a day or more if you take diuretics or live in a hot climate. Add lemon or cucumber if it makes it easier. And keep a bottle within reach at all times. Water isn't just for quenching thirst. Without it, every process slows to a crawl. And remember, coffee and tea have a diuretic effect, pulling water from your body. So for every cup of coffee, have an extra glass of water to offset the loss. I've seen far too many brains injured simply because of prolonged dehydration. And the phrase I hear most from those patients afterward is always the same. I didn't think it mattered, but it really does. And if dehydration can already make your blood thicker, reduce oxygen delivery, and squeeze your brain's blood vessels. Imagine what happens when you pour a stimulant on top of that. There's one daily habit millions of older adults think is harmless, yet it silently robs them of deep sleep, steady heart rhythms, and mental clarity. And it's sitting right there in your morning cup of coffee. Let's talk about that next. 8. Too much caffeine. For many people, that morning cup of coffee isn't just a drink, it's a ritual. It brings warmth, familiarity, and even fond memories. I get it. I enjoy a cup myself now and then. But if you're over Altmish, there's one truth. Most people never tell you. Excess caffeine can quietly overstimulate your nervous system, raise your blood pressure, and disrupt the delicate balance. Your brain depends on whether it comes from coffee, energy drinks, soda, or certain teas. Caffeine works the same way. It stimulates the central nervous system. In younger adults, the body can often adapt, but as we age, our cardiovascular and nervous systems become less flexible. That energy boost you once enjoyed in your 30-second or 40-second can now come with a hidden cost. Caffeine increases heart rate, constricts blood vessels, and triggers the release of cortisol, the stress hormone. It can also disrupt the body's natural circadian rhythm, particularly the deep sleep cycles when the brain repairs and restores itself. These changes might sound small, but in an aging brain, they build up quickly and make a real impact. When your blood vessels narrow and your heart rate climbs, blood flow to certain areas of the brain decreases. In response, the body activates platelets, and that's when blood clots can form. I once treated Bella, a 69-year-old retired nurse who took great pride in her sharp mind and unwavering focus. Every day, she drank 3 large cups of coffee. I need it to keep my energy up, she told me. But over the past year, she began experiencing frequent headaches, trouble concentrating, and occasional dizziness. At first, she thought it was just postmenopause. But a brain scan revealed something else. Chronic small vessel ischemia, a condition where the tiny, deep vessels in the brain become narrowed, stiff, and unable to deliver enough oxygen. What made her case striking was that Bella didn't have diabetes, didn't smoke, and only had slightly elevated blood pressure. Yet her coffee habit had quietly exceeded what her aging body could handle. Reviewing her daily routine, she admitted she often struggled to sleep, staying up late to watch television. The lack of deep, restorative sleep compounded the effects of caffeine, leaving her nervous system in a state where it never truly powered down to recover. Her brain was caught in a vicious cycle: constant stimulation, incomplete recovery, and then more stimulation. Here's what I want you to understand. The brain repairs itself in stillness, not in haste. It needs deep rest, not relentless prodding from stimulants. When you pour caffeine into your system day after day, cup after cup, your brain slowly loses its ability to regulate mood, memory, and blood flow in reasonable amounts. 1 cup in the morning with food. Caffeine usually isn't a problem, but for many older adults, this wears down blood vessels, disrupts sleep, and robs the body of the quiet nighttime hours it needs to repair, forcing it, instead, to deal with the leftover stress signals from the day. If you rely on coffee just to feel awake, ask yourself, what's the real reason? It might be poor sleep, an unbalanced diet, or dehydration. All of these matter more than any single cup of coffee. Remember, the aging brain doesn't need to be pushed. It needs to be protected. And part of that protection is choosing peace over pressure, even from something as small as what's inside your cup. And if caffeine can keep your brain trapped in a loop of overload and unrest, imagine what happens when your breakfast is loaded with sugar and refined starch, triggering inflammation before you've even finished your first sip of coffee. This could be the most important change you ever make. Let's talk about the next 9. Sugary breakfast. For many people, breakfast is almost a sacred ritual. A cup of coffee, the morning paper, and the familiar foods they've enjoyed for decades. But once you're past soixante, it's time to take a serious look at that routine, because what you eat in the first hour of your day could be quietly raising your risk of stroke before you even make it to lunch. What I often see in older adults' diets is that the most dangerous culprit isn't dinner or even dessert. It's a sugar-heavy breakfast, sweetened cereals, pancakes with syrup, toaster pastries, muffins, bagels with jam, low-fat yogurts loaded with hidden sugar. They may look harmless, even comforting in their familiarity, but to an aging brain, they're an ambush. When you start your day with a breakfast high in sugar and refined starch, your blood sugar spikes sharply within minutes, only to crash a few hours later. This roller coaster doesn't just leave you tired and drained, it damages the delicate blood vessels in your brain, especially the tiny capillaries. Day after day, these repeated insults drive chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and narrowing of the arteries. Worse, every time your blood sugar surges, your body responds by flooding your system with insulin to bring it down. This insulin wave triggers a rise in blood clotting activity, creating the perfect conditions for a clot to form. Sometimes, these clots are small and cause no immediate symptoms. But other times, they're large enough to block the flow of oxygen-rich blood to part of your brain. Let me tell you about Robert, a 84-year-old retired firefighter who had lived his entire life by a code of discipline. Every morning, without fail. He ate the same breakfast, whole grain cereal with raisins, a banana, a glass of orange juice, and a blueberry muffin. At least it's better than a donut. He would chuckle. Then one day, he came to see me, concerned about feeling mentally foggy and having trouble recalling recent conversations. His blood pressure was borderline high. But what stood out was how wildly his blood sugar swung throughout the day. A brain scan revealed tiny blood vessel damage consistent with the early stages of vascular dementia. He was stunned. But my breakfast is healthy, he said. On paper, it looked fine. In reality, that healthy meal contained over 45 grams of sugar, the equivalent of more than 11 teaspoons. And for a 73-year-old body, that much sugar in the morning, when your system is most sensitive to insulin, is a shock to the blood vessels and the brain. Here's the problem. As we age, our ability to process sugar gradually declines, even if we don't have diabetes. A breakfast that seemed harmless at 40 can quietly damage your blood vessels at 70. The brain remembers these repeated hits through narrowing arteries, chronic inflammation, and a slow decline in cognitive function. What's saddest is that many older adults believe they're making the right choices, such as reaching for low-fat yogurt, healthy granola bars, or a fresh glass of fruit juice, because they were once told to avoid fat and cholesterol. But the real danger is sugar, that sweet-tasting inflammation that ages the brain from the inside. You can't feel it when your blood sugar spikes, or when a clot begins to form, but these silent processes happen day after day, until one morning they show up as a stroke, a blank spot in your memory, or a permanent mental fog. So, what's the good news? You can change the course of your brain health, starting with the very first bite of the day. You have the power to begin your mornings with foods that nourish your arteries, fight inflammation, and keep your blood flowing cleanly, instead of attacking it. And if a sugar-laden breakfast is quietly pushing your brain toward danger, what should you eat instead? Tomorrow, what could you put on your plate that will protect your heart, your memory, and your life? Let's walk through some smart, brain-friendly breakfast choices that almost any older adult can enjoy. Let's start with an ingredient that's probably already in your fridge. 10. What seniors should eat instead. After talking about salt, sugar, caffeine, bad fats, and the habit of eating late at night, the question I hear most often from patients is this: so, doctor, what should I eat? My answer is always short. Eat what nourishes your brain, not just what fills your stomach. Brain-friendly foods are those that protect your blood vessels, keep blood sugar steady, lower inflammation, and support the brain's own repair processes. The good news: you don't have to search far. They're all available at your local grocery store. I remember Elaine, a 75-year-old retired piano teacher. After her husband passed away, she came to see me complaining of forgetfulness, brain fog, and occasional dizziness. Her cholesterol was a bit high. Blood sugar and blood pressure were borderline, but her brain scans showed early signs of white matter disease, a serious condition caused by a chronic lack of blood flow in the brain's small vessels. When she asked, "Isn't this just part of getting old?" I told her, "No, this isn't just aging. This is the result of what your brain has been fed every single day." Her diet was a familiar pattern I see in many older adults: toast with jam for breakfast, soup and crackers for lunch, pasta for dinner, almost no quality protein, very little healthy fat, and barely any foods rich in the specific nutrients that protect the brain and blood vessels. So I shared with her, and now with you, the 4 core food groups that can protect your brain and reduce your stroke risk. 1. Omega-3, rich healthy fats in wild salmon, sardines, walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds. These fats reduce vessel inflammation, protect the myelin sheath around neurons, and make platelets less sticky, lowering the chance of blood clots. 2. Leafy greens and colorful vegetables. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, broccoli, beets, bell peppers. They're packed with antioxidants, folate, potassium, and fiber, helping lower blood pressure and improve blood flow to the brain. The nitrates in beets, in particular, boost brain circulation, a benefit that becomes even more critical with age. 3. Berries and low glycemic fruits. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, apples. These are rich in anthocyanins, compounds that enhance memory, shield neurons from oxidative stress, regulate blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and lower clot risk. 4. Clean protein and whole grains, eggs, beans, quinoa, oats, lean poultry. Protein is essential for brain repair, especially after stroke or injury. Whole grains help stabilize blood sugar and feed the gut microbiome, a factor increasingly linked to brain health. Remember, a healthy brain isn't just about avoiding harmful foods. It's about actively choosing the right ones every single day. Starting with your very next meal, you can lay the foundation for a sharper memory, stronger blood vessels, and a longer, independent life. Elaine began making small changes, one step at a time. Her sugar-loaded breakfast was replaced with eggs and mashed avocado on sprouted whole grain toast. Lunch became a vibrant, colorful salad topped with salmon and drizzled with extra virgin olive oil, instead of cookies or candy. She snacked on walnuts and sipped green tea. Within just 3 months, her energy returned. Her mind felt sharper, and follow-up imaging showed improved blood flow with no new vascular damage in the brain. Most importantly, and she felt she had regained control, not just over her meals, but over her future. I want you to understand this: you are never too old to recover. The human body, even at 70 or 80, retains a remarkable ability to repair itself if you give it the right fuel. You wouldn't pour dirty oil into an engine and expect it to run smoothly for miles. So why expect your brain to perform at its best on nutrient-poor foods? That first bite in the morning, that afternoon snack, that dinner before bed. These seemingly small choices are either building or breaking the future of your brain. Choose well, and your body will respond with clarity, balance, and strength. Choose poorly, and the risks will quietly stack up until they erupt. Now you know what to avoid. You also know what to eat. But the most important factor is consistency. But here's the most important piece of all. consistency. So before we end, let me leave you with one final truth, one final warning, and one final word of encouragement, because the way you live every day still matters more than anything you've done in the past. Let's bring it all together. Final message. It's never too late to start again. Your brain deserves another chance. After decades in medicine, seeing countless patients walk into my office with eyes full of confusion, worry, or simply a longing for answers, I've realized something: most of them don't suffer because they don't care about their health, but because no one ever told them the truth clearly, gently, and early enough. If you're still listening to me now, I believe you're someone who wants the truth. You want to live smarter, longer, and more fully. And the truth is, you have far more control over your brain health than you think. We've gone through the list of habits and foods that silently attack the brain as we age, like processed meats, excess salt, sugary drinks, pastries and refined snacks, excessive coffee, repeatedly used frying oil, late-night dinners. All these seemingly small things can raise blood pressure, inflame blood vessels, and form blood clots. Those clots travel through the circulatory system, and if one gets stuck in a small brain vessel, it can cause a stroke, blur your memory, and take away your independence. I'm not sharing this to plant fear. I'm saying it because I believe you have the power to change. I've witnessed too many families devastated by the news of a loved one's stroke, a tragedy that could have been prevented. I've seen patients cry, not because they feared dying, but because they feared living in a body that no longer felt like their own. But I've also seen something beautiful: recovery. I've seen people in their 72nd and 82nd regain energy, clarity of mind, and dramatically reduce their risk of stroke, not through extreme therapies, but through small, consistent changes every day. They changed the way they ate, drank enough water, moved gently but regularly, listened to their bodies, gave up foods that were delicious but stealing years of healthy life, and replaced fear with understanding. The result: they regained memory, agility, and joy. Remember, the brain is not just nerve tissue. It's the place where your life is stored, your memories, your stories, your laughter, the faces of your grandchildren, a familiar melody, or the prayers you whisper before sleep. When the brain is worn down by sugar, salt, chronic inflammation, or poor sleep, these moments are the first to fade. But if you protect your brain, you protect everything that makes you who you are. Your past eating or lifestyle habits do not define your future. What matters is what you do from today onward. If you've eaten processed foods for 40 years, start fresh tomorrow morning. If you drink 3 cans of soda a day, cut down to 1. If dinner is loaded with starch and sugar, add vegetables, beans, or salmon. If your sleep is shallow, review your evening routine and replace tension with calm. Don't wait for a diagnosis to make changes. Start with breakfast. The first meal of the day sets the tone for your blood sugar, circulation, and brain performance for the rest of the day. Swap the muffin for eggs and avocado, the sugary juice for water or green tea. Nourish your brain not just to prevent disease, but so you can live a full life. The brain has remarkable power to recover at 60. Tisher. even 80. Blood vessels can still improve. Memory can still stabilize. And the risk of stroke and dementia can still drop. But time will not wait for you. Each day is both an opportunity and a responsibility. So, what should you remember? Eat with intention. Every bite is a message to your brain. Move gently but consistently to keep blood flowing. Drink water, even when you're not thirsty. Your brain depends on it. Sleep enough and deeply. Your future is shaped in those hours. Let go of harmful foods, no matter how familiar they feel. Add in foods that help you think fast. Walk strong and feel whole. Prevention is not a slogan. It's the most powerful medicine you have. The greatest gift you can give your children and grandchildren is a clear mind. The greatest gift you can give yourself is the time to enjoy it. Don't let another week pass on autopilot. Reclaim your health, not out of fear, but out of love for your body, your memories, and the people who still need you. You are never too old. You are never too late. And your brain still deserves another chance. Start today, because every wise choice you make will add clarity to your mind, strength to your heart, and years worth living to your life. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.